story, which is about the whole Bible. And let's just look back where we've been. We started in the book of Genesis, and we've been going through every single book, each week a new book. And we have made it this far. We finished Judges last week. Do you guys remember the book of Judges? Anyone have any bad dreams, nightmares from some of those stories? And then today we're going to look at the book of Ruth, and you'll see that it is sitting on top of the book of Judges because it doesn't happen chronologically after Judges. It happens during the time of the Judges. In fact, chapter 1, verse 1 says, during the time of the Judges. So we know that's why that book is in that time. And so that's where we will be today, which means next week we'll be looking at 1 Samuel. So you can read that book this week as you're preparing for next week. So where are we on the map? Like to keep the map in our eyes so we can know where we are, whether you're a map person or not. It's good just to kind of have the lay of the land, no pun intended. And so, the Israelites traveled out of the Red Sea, got the Ten Commandments of Mount Sinai, wandered in the wilderness for 40 years, crossed over the Jordan River, conquered Jericho with Joshua. And then during the time of the Judges, what they were doing was they were building out their world. I just realized I have this. They crossed over the Jordan, they conquered Jericho, and then after that, they started building out and they started dividing up the regions for different parts of, the tribes, right? And when they went in there, they were supposed to get rid of the people who live there, and they didn't. And that's why we had the book of Judges last week, where the Judges was kind of like fighting against the Amorites, the Perizzites, the Mosquitobites, right, and all of those. This week, we are looking at the book of Ruth, and the book of Ruth is here. So they start off in Bethlehem. That's kind of cool. We're in Christmas season, and they're in Bethlehem. And they're going to flee to Moab, which is right here. And they're going to live in Moab for 10 years. And then there's going to be a famine in the land, and they're going to go back to Bethlehem. And chapters 2, 3, and 4 of the book of Ruth are going to happen in Bethlehem. Chapter 1 happens in Moab. Does that make sense? No? I can do it in a different color if that helps. So they were in Bethlehem. It's green for Christmas. They went to Moab. All right, you got it. All right, so that is what we're going to look at today. So what is the structure of the book? And again, some of you are like, I don't care about structures. Okay, but if you get nerdy like me, it's super important, and it shows you how amazing the thing is when you understand the structure. So it's the book of Ruth is a fascinating book. Okay, so the reason why it's fascinating is only 4 chapters, so super short, and you can read it in an hour or less if you're a good reader. Slower if you're a bad reader. But it's really short. But it's a masterpiece in literary work. So most literary works, like if you were to say Shakespeare or whatever, it would have like an arc, right? It would have a theme. You would be able to map it out, and I've done that for you here. So it plays out almost like a 4-act play, like Act 1, Act 2, Act 3, Act 4. It's so clean. It's very, very clean, and you'll see that here. Let me show you what I'm talking about, and then as we go through the book, this will come to your mind. Okay, so Act 1, also chapter 1, starts off with an intro. So we have this intro here, and the intro tells us who and when, sets the scene, okay? Then there's the scene of death where everyone dies in the family except for Naomi and Ruth, okay? And then there's the scene of loyalty where Ruth says to Naomi, I will be with you, okay? I will stay with you. I will be loyal to you, okay? So there's that. So that's Act 1, intro, death, loyalty. You'll notice that is mirrored over here at the conclusion, the last act, right? Except for flipped or mirrored, right? So loyalty happens first. We have a loyalty between Boaz and Ruth. And then there's life, which is the opposite of death, as you can see, right? Life, because she has a baby. And then there's the conclusion, which kind of wraps the whole scene up again. So we have the intro, set the scene, and the conclusion, set the scene for the next book. Does that make sense? Beautiful. What happens in the middle? Act 2 and Act 3 are mirror images of each other. Isn't that cool? So we already saw mirror images of this. Now we're seeing mirror images of chapter 2 and chapter 3, or also Act 2 and Act 3. In Act 2, it happens during the daytime. You see that? And in the daytime, what happens is Naomi and Ruth have a plan at home. Ruth goes to the fields. She meets Boaz, and all these things happen. There's an ask, there's a notice, there's this word of this quotation about wings. He's a protector and a provider. She goes home, Ruth goes home and tells Naomi what happened. Hey, this is what happened. And Naomi's like, yay, okay? Chapter 3, Act 3, same exact scene. We're back at the kitchen table. We're making plans. Ruth goes to Boaz. Same things happen. In Act, notice, wings, protector, provider. We see the same thing. And then she goes back home and she tells Naomi what happened. And Naomi says, yay. Okay? Isn't that cool? So it's super, super cool and easy for you guys to follow. So that's what we're going to do today, and we're going to look at the book of Ruth. Are you ready? Chapter 1, verse 1. It says, in those days, the judges ruled. There was a famine in the land. So there's the setting, right? In the days of the judges, there's famine in the land. And there was a man who lived in Bethlehem who said, I'm going to take my wife, and we're going to go to Moab. This man was from Bethlehem in Judah, and he went to sojourn into the country of Moab, he and his wife and his 2 sons. He had 2 sons, okay? So these 2 sons and he and his wife. So this man, his name's Ephraim, we find out later, but this man and his wife, Naomi, take their 2 sons, I don't even remember their names because they die so quickly, to Moab. So they go to Moab in order to hopefully survive because there's a famine in Bethlehem. And when they get to Moab, a couple things happen. Now, I'm not going to read the text for you. I'm just going to tell you the story. When they get to Moab, there's a famine, and the husband dies. The rest of the family's trying to survive throughout the famine, and then the 2 sons get married to Moabite women. Okay? Are the Israelites supposed to marry foreign women? Say no, right? They're supposed to actually kill them in Judges, and right? But so you're definitely not supposed to marry foreign women. It's a sin. So these 2 sons marry Moabite women and hope that they can raise a family and survive this famine. But eventually those 2 sons die as well. And so Naomi has buried her husband and her 2 sons, and she's left with 2 foreign daughter-in-laws. All right? So she's like, what do we do? What do we do? I don't know. Why am I here? I'm here all alone in this foreign land with these 2 foreign girls. And I'm stuck with them, right? So she says, I'm going back home to Bethlehem. And so she starts to head back home to Bethlehem. And the 2 daughter-in-laws, Orpah and Ruth, those are her names, they're going to go with her back to Bethlehem. And she looks at them and says, you can't come back to Bethlehem with me. Why not? Well, first of all, they don't like foreign women or foreigners at all. They're not going to be happy about the fact that my son's married you. Second of all, I am a bitter old woman. Raise your hand if you can relate. Chuck, don't raise your hand. I went to Moab to survive and to live, and God gave me a full life. I had a husband and 2 sons, and then those 2 sons got married, and I had daughters-in-laws. I was about ready to have grandkids, every grandma's dream, right? And then God took it all from me, and I'm bitter. And she says, my name is Mara. And she calls herself Mara. Her name's actually Naomi. And she says, call me Mara, which means, and you should already know what Mara means, because of the book of Exodus, they were traveling through the wilderness, and they got to the waters of Mara, and they were bitter waters, and they couldn't drink them, and they were mad. And they threw a tree. You know, Moses was instructed of a tree. He threw the tree in the water, and the water became safe to drink, and they drank it, and they lived. And that's the story of Jesus. Jesus is the tree, turns the bitter thing into a life thing, right? Beautiful story. And so Naomi says, I'm bitter. Just call me bitter. And so I'm going back to hometown. And when I get there, they're all going to look at me like a bitter old woman that I am. So you guys should just go back to your hometown. Orpah, Ruth, go home. Love you, but I have nothing for you. Even if I did have something for you, she actually says this, it's very interesting. Even if I did have something for you, let's say that I got married, had 2 more sons, would you wait 20 years to marry them? You'll be like 80 years old by then, right? No, you're not going to do that. So go back home and find you another man. I don't have any other men for you. Even if I had one today, you wouldn't marry him for a long time. Okay? And Orpah's like, good point. I'm going home. And she goes home. Ruth, on the other hand, falls down to her knees and says, I will never leave you. In fact, you are my mother, and your people are my people, and your God is my God, and I will die before I separate from you. And may your God kill me if I ever separate from you. And Ruth looked at her and said, well, I guess I can't argue with that. Come home with me. And so they go home back to Bethlehem together. And Ruth made this huge pledge of loyalty. I am your daughter. You are my mother. Your people are my people. And here's a key thing. Your God is my God. So this Moabite woman is now a Jew. okay? Or she believes in God, at least. And she goes back home with Ruth. And that's what this scene is about. That's Act 1. Did you get it? They go to Bethlehem. They go to Moab, Death. Goes back home, okay? The show of loyalty. I will be with you. I will go where you go, she said. You lodge, I will lodge. Where you lodge, I will lodge. Your people should be my people and your God, my God. So Naomi returned, and Ruth the Moabite, her daughter-in-law, with her, who returned from the country of Moab, and they came to Bethlehem at the beginning of the barley harvest. That's the end of chapter 2. So this is a really good summary verse of all of chapter 1. So Naomi returned, and Ruth the Moabite, her daughter-in-law, with her, returned from the country of Moab. Okay, so we just basically got the whole of chapter 1 in one sentence. And they came to Bethlehem at the beginning of the barley harvest. And for those of you who harvest barley, you know when that is. I don't. Act 2. Are you ready? Good story so far, right? Let me help you with something that I was always confused about. Naomi is the old lady, and Ruth is the young lady. Okay? I always got that confused when I was a kid because my grandma's name is Ruth. And so I always thought Ruth was the old lady, and it does sound like an old lady name. And Naomi sounds like a young lady name, does it not? I think of Ruth as like, hi, how you doing, old lady? And then Naomi's like, hi, how are you? Right? And so it's the opposite. Naomi's the grandma. Ruth, who has an old lady name, is the young girl. Okay? You got that? Did you guys, was anyone else confused about that? Or is it just stupid me? Oh, it's just stupid me. It's because my grandma's name is Ruth. That's probably why. All right, Act 2. Naomi and Ruth are home. They're sad. The people are looking at them like, what happened? What happened to Naomi? All the women of town are saying, what happened to Naomi? She left full, she came back empty. And Ruth says, well, we can't starve to death, so I'm going to go and get us some food. Okay, it is remember, the beginning of the barley harvest. I almost said Harley harvest. It's the beginning of the barley harvest. So she says, I'm going to go get us some barley. And as you know, in the Jewish tradition, and we read this in the book of Deuteronomy, etc., that the Jews were supposed to be known for taking care of foreigners. Even though they weren't supposed to intermarry with foreigners, they're supposed to take care of them. So if there's a foreigner in your midst, you're supposed to leave some of the harvest on the floor, on the ground, for them to take. Treat the alien and the foreigner with respect. Show them kindness. And you'll see this a lot. A corner of your field should not be harvested so that the poor can harvest it for themselves. So she goes out there and she starts harvesting along the edges of the field for this small stuff. And there's a man, and his name is Boaz. Now, in chapter 2, beginning of the scene, it's like the scene is over, right? Scene 1 is over. Scene 2 starts. And it says, now there was a man named Boaz. Okay? He was a distant relative of Naomi. So it's like Naomi's cousin or something like that. Actually, not Naomi's husband's cousin, okay, or something like that. So he's a distant relative of Naomi named Boaz, verse 1. Verse 2, Ruth said, I'm going to go get us some food. She goes and she starts cultivating around the edge of the field. Boaz comes over and he sees his workers and he's like, who's this girl over here? That she looks different. He's never seen her before. And the servants say, she's that foreign woman that came back with Naomi. Oh, Boaz said, I've heard about her. And he specifically says, I heard that she showed great loyalty to both Naomi and to our God, right? So he's impressed with her already. And he says to his workers, you should leave her alone. Let her take what she needs, okay? And they say, yes, sir. And he says, hey, can I ask you a question? Are you Naomi? Are you Ruth? Excuse me, I did it again. Are you Ruth? And she said, yes, I am. I've heard of you. He said something interesting. First of all, I should say this. The servant said, she came to us and she said, please let me glean and gather among the sheaves after the reapers. And then Boaz said to the servants, let her do it. Okay. And then when he finds out who she is, he says to her, may the Lord repay you for what you have done, specifically about this loyalty, and a full reward be given you by the Lord, the God of Israel. So now he's preaching the gospel to her, right? May God provide for you, my God, the God of Israel, under whose wings you have come to take refuge. And so he says this thing. It's an interesting thing to say about God, right? Does God have wings? Apparently. Boaz thinks so, right? So he's saying, you're a woman of great loyalty. I've heard of you, and I'm praying now that God will bless you because you have trusted him and you've placed yourself under God's wings. Okay? Isn't that pretty? Isn't that a cool thing? Women, how would you like it if some man said that to you? You'd be like, yeah, I'll marry that man, right? Would you say that? Some of you are like, I ain't never getting married again. Okay, but some of you are thinking you would love that. Okay, you would love it if a man led you in that way. So here's this man. He says, may God of Israel, under whose wings you have come to take refuge, bless you. So then he gives her extra food. He says, go take, you can't go home empty-handed. Go take all this back to Naomi and said, I said hi. Tell her I said hi. So she goes back home, scene 3 in Act 2, and she tells Naomi, Ruth goes home. You guys are just going to have to ignore me if I get this wrong. Ruth goes home and tells Naomi, guess what? I met a man. Oh, did you? Yeah, his name is Boaz. And she said, oh, Naomi said, oh, Boaz. He's actually, and she calls him something. She says, he's our kinsman-redeemer. And Ruth says, a what? Just like that. She said it in the Hebrew. A what? And then Naomi says, a kinsman-redeemer it's a cultural thing in our Jewish culture. And that is that if a man dies and he has children, or he has a wife, specifically, his brother or whoever's next in line in the family is supposed to marry that wife in order to take care of her, in order so that his name, the dead man's name, will carry on in life. Because we don't want her to marry a different man with a different last name. We want him to marry another family member. Keep it in the family. And all this wealth and these children and these farms that we've built together will stay in the family. So Boaz actually is my husband's uncle, brother, cousin, I don't know. And he's next in line to be the kinsman-redeemer. So he can marry you and take control of our land and our family heritage. Thank you. Okay? He's a young man, right? He's not old like Naomi. He's a young man, so he's probably going to marry Ruth. And so that's the end of chapter 2 or Act 2. She goes, she meets Boaz. Boaz says something about the wings, gives her some food. She goes home. She goes, I met a man named Boaz. He talked about wings. And then Naomi said, oh, he's my kinsman-redeemer. And Ruth said, what's a kinsman-redeemer? And we're going to learn about that in the next book, in the next chapter, in the next act. Are you ready? Okay, Act 3. Scene 1. This is going to happen a few months later after the harvest is about over. And Naomi says to Ruth, you know what? It's time for you to stop looking like a widow. It's time for you to stop looking so sad and depressed. It's time for you to put on some perfume. Oh my gosh, I got to tell you this story. Josiah and I went to Chuck's Boots yesterday, or day before yesterday, to go buy him some boots. He's wearing them right now. You can see he's got some boots on. He just turned 18 years old, by the way. His birthday was Thursday. 18 years old, so he got boots. And we went to Chuck's. And did you like boot shopping, Josiah? Yeah, he was exhausting. After the 4th pair of boots, you're like, I don't know the difference between a boot and a not a boot, you know? Square toe, round toe. Anyway, this lady came in, and I swear I feel like she took a bath in perfume. And when I say a bath, I mean it was still dripping off of her. My eyes were watering. I couldn't see straight. It's like we had to get out of there. And I was telling Josiah on the way home, I was like, I don't think I've experienced that in a long time. But it used to be the case that you'd experience it all the time. You know what I mean? Do you remember that? Do you remember like you used to go to the Walmart and you'd smell people? It's like, dude, did you take a bath in that stuff? People don't use cologne that way anymore, but she did. And I told Josiah something like, maybe she accidentally spilled it on her. She just doesn't realize that it smells that bad. And then he said, it would be different if it smelled good. Like, yeah, that's another point. It also smelled bad. You know what I mean? It's like the worst. This is not part of the book. This is comic relief, okay? She tells Naomi, you need to make yourself smell good, dress up, put on some makeup, put on something other than black, put on something nice, and go back out to Boaz. And here's what's going to happen with Boaz. Because tonight is the end of the harvest, he's going to be in the threshing room. He's going to be on the threshing floor, threshing the barley, threshing the wheat. And I want you to go to him. And she tells him exactly what to do according to their Jewish customs. And so Ruth says, okay, I'll do it. And this is what she does. She goes to Boaz. Boaz has been threshing the wheat, just like Gideon Is it Gideon? Yeah, just like Gideon did in the last book. And she sees him, and he's tired. He's laying down on the ground next to the wheat. And she was told by Naomi to go to him and to uncover his feet and lay at his feet. And that's what she does. And if you're reading the Bible, you're like, what? Well, what does that mean? I don't know. But I know it's a Jewish cultural thing. And here's what commentators say. Uncovering Boaz's feet is a symbolic, covenantal gesture. It's not a sexual one, for those of you who may have been thinking that. It is a humble appeal for protection and for redemption, and that word redemption is key, and covenant responsibility. So when he had made the comment about, may God protect you under his wings, when she pulls back the hem of his robe and uncovers his feet, that word for the hem of the robe could also be a wing of your robe, okay? And she pulls back that wing and uncovers his feet, and she lays at his feet, suggesting, will you cover me with your wings, right? That's what she's doing. Nothing improper happening here. In fact, it's the exact opposite. It's something extremely proper, and he's probably going to be very surprised by this Moabite woman doing this Jewish custom. Does that make sense? So he wakes up and he says, who's there? Who just exposed my feet? You know? And she answered, I am Ruth, your servant. Spread your, and she says that word, right? Spread your wings over your servant, for you are, and then she tells him, a redeemer, a kinsman-redeemer. And he responds and says, wow, what an amazing woman, right? This woman who understands the rules of our culture and who humbly, in Act 2, humbly asked to take grain, and I gave it to her. Now she's humbly asking me to protect her. And what do you think he's going to do? He is going to protect her. And he tells her, I will protect you. And he gives her a blanket, and he gives her, he puts his arm around her, and he says, I will protect you. And he gives her a bunch of more barley and says, take this home to Naomi. But then he tells her, kind of like the climax of the story, if you will, I am not actually your kinsman-redeemer. I'm second in line to be your kinsman-redeemer. There's another man. He's actually first in line to be your kinsman-redeemer. So legally speaking, I have to ask him first. I have to give him first rights of refusal. Yeah. I have to give him first rights of refusal. So tell you what, I'll take care of this. You don't say anything to anybody about what happened here tonight. You know, I don't want people talking, thinking something happened that didn't. You go home, take this to Naomi, and I will see you soon. I'll let you know how it goes. End of Act 3. Isn't that cool? And it mirrored the first two, because she goes back home and she says, Naomi, I uncovered his feet just like you said. And he looked at me and said, who are you? And he said the thing about the wings. And then he gave me barley. And he said he's going to take care of it. And Naomi said, I know Boaz. He's a righteous man. He will not sleep until this is taken care of. So there's this hope that he is going to redeem us. He's going to save us. Act 4. And this is the end. We're almost done. He goes into the town and he gets this man, and I forget his name. You could look it up. I mean, if I would have read it again this morning, I'd remember. I read it, not this morning, so I don't remember. Does that make sense? So what happens when you turn 50? You don't remember anything you did before this morning. Forget his name. Bubba. Let's just call him Bubba. He goes to Bubba and he says, could you come into the city gate with me? And Bubba says, okay, sure. Well, you got a problem? He's like, yes. And he gets the city councils, come over here, come here. I got something I want to do. He says, Bubba, listen, there is a woman named Naomi. She went to Bethlehem. She went to Moab. She came back, and she has this land. What was it? Ruth, thank you. Ruth. Well, no, Naomi was the one who went and came back, and she brought with her Ruth. And see, now you're getting confused. And she brought with her Ruth, and she needs a kinsman-redeemer, and you're next in line to be the kinsman-redeemer. And, of course, when you redeem it, you'll acquire her family's land. And this guy, Bubba, says, oh, heck yeah, I'll do that. And then, well, that's not going to work out according to what Boaz wanted. Boaz said, but one thing I need to tell you, in order for you to be the kinsman-redeemer and take the land, you have to marry the Moabite foreign woman. And he said, oh, no, I can't do that. And he's like, so, I mean, it's okay. You don't have to do it. I'm next in line. And if you don't want to do it, I'll do it. But I need your permission. And, of course, your permission requires you to take off your sandal and give it to me. Again, weird cultural things, but it was the thing of the time. And so this man, Bubba, says, yeah, I don't want to marry a foreign woman. I don't want any of that. I don't want any of that drama. Okay. So he takes off his sandal. I don't know which foot, left or right. And he gives it to Boaz. And the city council write a contract and they sign it together. And now Boaz is rightfully going to take Ruth as his wife and inherit Naomi as his mother-in-law and Naomi's family land together, okay? So Boaz took Ruth, and she became his wife, and he went into her. Now that is what you were thinking, okay? And the Lord gave her conception, and she did what? Bore a son, okay? She bore a son. So now there's life. When there was sons dying in chapter 1, there are sons being born in chapter 4. Do you see that? Then the woman said to Naomi, she's the grandma, right? Woman said to Naomi, blessed be the Lord who has not left you this day without a redeemer, and may his name be renowned in Israel. So she says, God has redeemed you. He's redeemed you, Naomi, when you left and went to Moab and came on back. He's redeemed you now with this man, Boaz. Who's the women saying this to? They're not saying it to Ruth. They're saying it to Naomi. Naomi's the one being redeemed because of Boaz. Both Naomi and Ruth are being redeemed, but these women are talking to Naomi. She's the main character, essentially. And then they say this thing, and may his name, Boaz's name, be renowned in Israel. So may he be honored. May he be famous for what he has done. Okay? And that's the end of Act 4. Okay? Isn't that beautiful? But there's more. Yeah, thank you. There's more. So the book just doesn't just end right there. There's like this, you know how, and I do this all the time. I did it last night, actually. You watch a movie, and you're like, and the credits start rolling, and do you fast forward beyond the credits to see if there's a secret clip? Right? Remember they started doing that like 20 years ago? And then sometimes they still do. And so I'm always like fast forwarding it. And it's harder to do nowadays with because Netflix always wants to push you to the next thing. And I'm like, no, don't push me to the next thing. I want to get all the way through the credits to see, is there a secret scene? And if there's a secret scene, sometimes it's worth that. Sometimes it's not. You know what I'm saying? You guys have no idea what I'm talking about, do you? You don't watch movies? Okay. Some of you do. Ferris Bueller was the first one that did the secret scene. Yeah. And then sometimes a secret scene will give you a hint as if there's a sequel, right? If there's another one coming. Anyway, I did it last night. I was watching a movie, and I was flipping through the end, and I was hoping for a secret scene, and there wasn't one. Ruth is going to give us a secret scene. Are you ready? So at the end, baby has the baby. The women say, yay, Naomi had a kinsman-redeemer. May his name be famous in all the earth. And then they give us the secret scene, and the secret scene is this family tree, a list of people who were born before Naomi's husband and Boaz, and then the list of people who were going to be born, like it knows the future, who's going to be born after Obed, the kid's name, the baby's name. I'll read it to you. And the women of the neighborhood gave him a name, saying, a son has been born to Naomi, and they named him Obed. And he was the father of who? Jesse, who is the father of David. Now, that's happening in the next week in 1 Samuel, right, when we get to that book. Hasn't happened yet. So why is it being written at the end of this book? That's interesting, is it not? I'm not saying that it's prophetic. I'm saying it was probably written after the fact, but it was written to tell us there's more to this story. So this family tree thing becomes an important part of the story. So look at this last verse 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, last couple verses. Now, these are the generations of Perez. Perez fathered Hezron. Hezron fathered Ram. Ram fathered Amminadab. Amminadab fathered Nahshon. Nahshon fathered Salmon. Salmon fathered Boaz. Boaz fathered Obed. Obed fathered Jesse. And Jesse fathered King David. And if you read the book of Matthew, as you will do at Christmas time, the very beginning, it will take this lineage right here and then keep going with it until we get to, guess who? Baby Jesus, or Joseph, and then Jesus. And so Ruth is a Moabite woman, just like Tamar from Joshua, the prostitute, right? Tamar, and now Ruth, a Moabite woman, is in the lineage of Jesus' family tree. Isn't that cool? And this beautiful story in the middle of this mess. I mean, last week was a mess, was it not? These judges killing people and cutting their body up and beating them up with the jawbone. I mean, it was just a mess. God's like, I'm dealing with messy people, and I only have messy people that I can use to deal with the other messy people. Some people are messier than others, right? And we see just Samson was a big fat mess, right? And then we see then there's a story in the middle of it. In the middle of all that mess, this woman takes a Moabite daughter-in-law, gets her married, and it's supposed to be really special. Why? Because of this word kinsman-redeemer, okay? This word redeem, this concept of being redeemed is played out throughout the whole story. Another interesting thing. Do you know what word is not mentioned in the book of Ruth? God. Nowhere in the book of Ruth do we see God said or God willed or God. Well, his name is mentioned in the sense that there's wings, but it's not, God is not, he doesn't say or do anything in this book. It's all just a story of what's happening between three people, and God is assumed in the background. Does that make sense? So this is our thing. Remember we had the intro? They went to Moab. All the men died. Ruth showed loyalty. We had this plan that happened between them. Boaz is now showing loyalty and giving her life. The Redeemer gives her life. And then there's the conclusion. And if I were to simplify that a little bit different, in the concept of the word Redeemer, it starts off in Bethlehem and it ends in Bethlehem. Okay? Starts off in Bethlehem, and the question is will Moab save us? Will Moab redeem us from the famine? No, they go back to Bethlehem. Now will Boaz be our redeemer? And so we wait. And literally those words, we wait, is in there. So it's a key part. And then Boaz says, I will be your redeemer, but I got to go talk to this council first. So guess what we do? We wait. And then Boaz does redeem her, to redeem them, and gives them a baby. And then it ends with what? Jesse, David, and Jesus, and Bethlehem, right? And the angels came to Bethlehem and said, behold, in the city of David, right? Story of great joy for all people and stuff. You know the thing, right? It's all there. It's a beautiful story. Do you see how that is a beautiful thing? In a very, very short book, 4 books, we see Bethlehem, who's our Redeemer, who will save us, who will save us. We're waiting for salvation. We're waiting for salvation. He saves us, but yet he's just a picture of the real Savior who's yet to come in Bethlehem. It's almost like a beautiful Christmas story. Like if I were to say, how can I creatively preach a Christmas message? I would have preached this. But I didn't say that. I just said next book, and we read it. It was cool, isn't it? Someone say yes. Someone say, isn't it? Let's pray. Father in heaven, we give you praise for this book. Oh, wow, so good. Such a good story. I mean, I think that I could read all 4 chapters again today and glean more from it. And I encourage us all to do the same thing. I ask, Lord, that as we read through your book, the book that you've given us, it's an amazing thing to have words from you that we can read. And we see how literary these things are, how amazing your work is. It's undeniable that you are such an amazing God. I pray, Lord, that as we engage in this, well, we're real close to Christmas, and I know if everyone else's life in this room is anything like mine, it's busy, it's maybe anxious, there's might be some stress, there might be some waiting and some longing involved. During these next couple weeks, I pray, Lord, that you will calm all of our hearts and allow us to see and hear the beautiful, wonderful message of our Redeemer. And I ask this in Jesus' name. Amen. We're going to close with a Christmas song. The Christmas song